Hey guys, and welcome back to another skill point guide video for Total War Warhammer 3 on Immortal Empires. Today we'll be going over Kroq-Gar, and we'll kind of just jump right in. His skill tree is kind of unique just because he has, sort of like the Thorgrim Grudgebearer skill guide, he's got like the Annihilate or Destroy or these kind of things focusing on different races in the campaign that you can choose, and they don't like lock out each other, but it just depends on what you're fighting. But we do have quite a bit to go through with him because of that, and in terms of what to pick and whatnot. So we're gonna jump right on into his video. Now, I do like to go down his blue line first, grabbing the campaign movement range and also grabbing some more ancient cunning. With his last defender attribute, he already has a ambush success chance of 25%, and you're also going to be in the jungle area quite a bit for at least the early parts of your campaign. So getting that extra ambush success chance will just obviously make it more likely to happen. Now after that though, you can kind of either keep going down his blue line or his red line. Personally, I don't really worry about him in melee because already his base stats, I know this is when he's on Grimlock. If I take him off though, you can see his base stats already when he's not on his mount is pretty good, as well as his items here will give him more magical attack, more weapon strength, more bonus versus large, excuse me, a little bit of ward save, melee attack, melee defense, that kind of stuff. So stat wise, he's already kind of sort of taken care of early on, so it's just not as big of a rush to make him as powerful as he can be. So, which is why after grabbing Ancient Cunning, typically I do like to go down his red line and buff some of his source units. He does provide them with some extra unit experience gain, plus 25%. And really early on, with Lizardmen in general, I really like their melee units unless I'm playing as, say, Oxyotl or Tehenwyn. I really do like source units. They're really tanky. They're pretty powerful in melee. They got loads of hit points as well. And the fact that they don't rampage anymore, I really like. Having the primal instincts replace that is a huge positive in their campaign. So I do like to buff them there. Little extra melee attack, little extra armor. And then really, depending on what you want to end up going with, because you can do a lot of things with like these blessings. You can either focus more on source units, make them a little cheaper, or you can do the blessing of Itzel, which is the upkeep cost and leadership for your monster units. So it kind of really depends what you end up wanting to go with. Now he does start with a Stegodon. And as you're progressing through the campaign, you may be fortunate to get like a Blessed Carnosaur or a Blessed Stegodon even via the blessed spawning mechanic in the game for Lizardmen. So it kind of just depends. But early on, the upkeep plus 20% for a single unit is just not going to make that big of a difference. So I highly recommend just kind of waiting early on, unless you're just going to go full source units. Kind of wait until you decide what you're wanting to do in the campaign before you go ahead and pick one of these. Because really for me, I never know what I'm going to do. I rarely do the blessing of Chotek. Usually it's either the Source one, Topek, or even like the Hanchi one, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, or the blessing of Itzel. It really just depends kind of what I'm feeling in that campaign. Now I do like to come back and finish the blue line. I know it's like, why didn't you do the blue line first? It's just because I do want to make my army a little bit stronger, a little more potent, because the Skaven are kind of annoying to deal with, plus you're going to be running into Chaos right away. So I do like to get my units a little tankier there. But then also the Fervent is nice just because it reduces the corruption, which with Skaven corruption, Chaos corruption, it's going to be nice to have that extra -1 corruption in your army there. And then finishing down his blue line, I just like to do a little bit of extra replenishment for him because they don't replenish very well. They don't have heroes early on anyway that can really help with that. You don't have the replenishment via the Skink Priest or anything like that. So I do like to grab replenishment for his army there. And then really, It's more about the lightning strike, which I know I normally don't get, but with a melee-based army, when you're going up against a lot of forces, I just want to delay those enemy reinforcements so I can potentially wipe out a enemy army early on before the reinforcements get there. And then grabbing the Renowned and Feared just for that a little bit of upkeep cost reduction, but mainly about grabbing that campaign movement range on the campaign map. Now, as you're progressing through, you're going to be fighting Skaven. You're going to be running into the Chaos with Kairos. I believe it's a Slanesh minor faction down there as well. And then moving up, you're going to run into more Skaven, more Chaos with Malagor and Skarbrand. And so because of that, I do like to do the neutralized Chaos. You're going to be fighting them pretty often in your campaign. Early on and, kind of in the middle and potentially later stages depending on how your campaign is going. So giving him an extra melee attack of 8 will definitely be handy, but mainly the leadership and weapon strength fighting against them will become a little handy, especially because the demon units and factions will have that physical resistance, making your units fight a little weaker. Now, I know you're going to be fighting against Skaven. I really don't worry about it when fighting Skaven. Like the leadership +6 and weapon strength, Skaven are very weak. And the immune to contact effects would be nice if you're going up against, say, like Kroq and Lustria, but you're just not going to be doing that with Kroq-Gar, individually. So I usually don't waste a point going into the Skaven because your melee will beat the Skaven, and you'll be able to run around in circles against the Skaven and get rid of them that way. So I really don't prioritize it, that much. But after finishing his blue line, I do like to go and make him a little stronger down his melee line, just because Kroq-Gar is going to be a huge tank for you, especially once you get him on his mount with Grimlock. He's going to be fighting a lot of the lords by himself, even grabbing Enforcer of Order, just giving him more weapon strength when fighting against a lot of the evil factions in the game. Because he is going to be doing a lot of the tanking. You're going to be able to heal him with some life magic in your campaign, and you still have plenty of points to spend in the blessing category, as well as the destroy the other races, basically in the campaign map. But he is going to be, especially once you get his Revered Spear, allowing him magical attack, it's going to be able to bypass that physical resistance. And really, he's going to be your Lord Killer. He's going to be your Lord Sniper. He's going to go in, cause a lot of mayhem, and you definitely will need him to. He's very powerful. He's got good stats, and as you progress and go on in your campaign, those will become ever more prevalent and ever more needed in your campaign there. So I do like to make him pretty tanky as well. Now, personally, I like to do, coming back to his red line, I do like to do Beast Driver. I do like to give him some, it's Lizardman. I like to go Dinosaurs, so I do like to go Beast Driver. And then the Epicentrist, give them more armor, leadership, and charge bonus, and then stand your ground. Just so when you're fighting in with your single entities, you'll be able to provide, or any unit really, more melee defense and leadership there. And because of that, typically I do the Blessing of Itzel, but I'm for now, for the purposes of the video, I am going to leave this till the very end, because it just depends. Again, like the speed and spell resistance, the spell resistance isn't that big of a deal, but the speed is pretty handy. So if you're going with some, single entity dinosaurs, or just in general, like the Saurus units are very slow. Like this is dwarf level of speed. So giving them a little extra speed could be useful, or if you want to do upkeep, it really just depends what you want your army to do. It's very, very, individually based, decided. So I'm not going to say, oh, you should always do this one, because it's not necessarily true, because each player will kind of play differently there. But I do like to grab Honored Elder. The control +1 all provinces. I believe every lord still can in the Lizardmen roster get this. You'll basically, as long as you keep getting this, you'll just never run into public order problems there. And then grabbing him some extra physical resistance with the spawning of Zoatl, and also the spell resistance, extra 10%. I do like to grab that. I do bypass the Mentor on this one, just because he does have other skills that I do like to get. And again, these kind of just depend on what you really end up going against. Dark Elves, you're probably not going to run into them. The Greenskins could be a enemy for you that you have to face. And so I am going to leave these open. We probably won't actually end up spending all these skill points just because they typically, it just really depends on what you end up going against. You know, it could be Beastmen, it could be Skaven. You know, you could be struggling with Skaven, I don't know, or Greenskins, Dwarves maybe, who knows, the Undead. It really just depends on your situation in your campaign, because it all varies. You know, if you end up staying in this area, do you go or do you end up migrating to Lustria? Do you go up to Mazdamundi? It really just depends. And so because of that, you know, you don't want to spend, especially if you don't play with the one button respec mod that I do. If you don't play with it, you know, and say you're going up against you know, you spend a point against the Beastmen or Chaos or Dwarves, but then you're in Lustria where there's rarely ever any Chaos, rarely any Beastmen or Dwarves, and now you've wasted 3 points. So I'm just going to kind of leave that open there for you. But other than that, that is how I would recommend leveling him up. Again, I know I'm leaving some points open, but that's just because all of these just vary, and really it's up to each individual player on what they end up prioritizing. But other than that, that is how I would recommend focusing them on. Again, the red line too, it really just depends what other units you want to use with, but I do like to buff the source units early on. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and until the next video, guys, I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you later. Bye.